The Great Hall of the Galactic Council was larger than any stadium on Earth. Its walls curved in silver arcs, glowing with alien lights. Strange symbols floated in the air, and the floor itself seemed alive, pulsing like a heart. Every seat was filled with leaders from dozens of star empires. Their ships floated outside the station, bright like jewels against the endless black of space. They had gathered for one reason. Today the humans would arrive, the young species from a small blue world. Many believed humans were too weak to stand before such mighty civilizations. Others thought humans would beg for protection. But most of them simply laughed, imagining the fragile creatures of Earth bowing and scraping. Whispers filled the chamber. "They are only children of the stars," one alien hissed with 4 tongues. "They have no fleets, no ancient weapons," another said, its eyes glowing with pride. "They will surrender their planet and thank us for mercy." A tall reptilian delegate laughed, his voice echoing across the hall. Then the great doors opened. The sound silenced the room at once. From the shadow of the entrance, the human envoy walked inside. He was not tall, not glowing, not covered in armor like the other races. He was only a man in a plain dark suit. Yet he walked with calm steps, as if the stares of 100 alien eyes meant nothing. Behind him followed 2 more humans, carrying no weapons, only small cases of documents. The guards of the council almost smiled. These newcomers were too fragile, too unprepared. It was like bringing glass to a battlefield of steel. The human diplomat reached the center of the hall. He looked around slowly, meeting the eyes of the alien leaders. There was no fear in his face, no trembling in his hands. That quiet confidence made some aliens uncomfortable, though they did not know why. The speaker of the council, a massive creature with skin like burning stone, rose from his throne. "Human of Earth," the speaker said, his voice like rolling thunder. "You are honored here today, though your people are young. We offer you guidance, we offer you protection. In return, you will give us what we demand: your resources, your labor, and your obedience." The chamber shook with laughter. Dozens of alien leaders slammed their hands on the table, their laughter booming like storms. "Do not fear, little human," one shouted. "We will keep your planet safe, for a price." "Yes," another sneered. "Bring us your oceans, your metals, your energy, and you may live under our shadow." The human envoy did not laugh. He did not shout. He only stood still, his face unreadable. For a long moment, silence stretched. Even the alien laughter began to fade, replaced by curiosity. Why was he not responding? Why was he not afraid? At last, the human spoke. His voice was calm, steady, almost too soft for such a giant hall. "Humanity thanks you for your invitation," he said. "We too value peace, we too believe in cooperation. But understand this, we are not here to beg. We are not here to kneel." Gasps echoed through the chamber. Some aliens hissed, others growled. The speaker of the council leaned forward, smoke rising from his mouth. "You dare speak so boldly, human?" he rumbled. "Do you not see who stands before you? We are empires older than your sun. We hold fleets that can burn your skies in a single breath. What do you have? What can your small world offer against us?" The human envoy lifted his hand slowly. He placed a small device on the glowing table before him. It was no weapon, no bomb, just a small black cube with a red light at its heart, blinking softly. The aliens laughed again. "A toy? A signal? Is this all the humans bring?" But the envoy only smiled, a quiet, unsettling smile. "This," he said, "is a warning." The laughter stopped. The air grew colder. The alien leaders shifted in their seats. They did not yet understand, but something in his voice, in his steady eyes, told them this was no joke. For the first time, a shadow of doubt crossed the council chamber. What could the humans possibly mean? Why did they not tremble? What power could such a young race hide? The envoy folded his hands behind his back. He looked around the hall once more, slowly. Then he said only 3 words. "Look outside now." Every alien turned. Every eye fixed on the giant windows of the council hall. The stars beyond were not empty anymore. Something was moving in the dark. The alien council froze for a long moment. Outside the window, shadows shifted in the darkness of space. But the view was not yet clear. Whispers spread like fire across the hall. "What did he mean?" One alien muttered with clicking jaws. "Is this a trick?" Another growled, its scaled hands gripping the table. The speaker of the council narrowed his burning eyes at the human envoy. But instead of showing fear, the envoy only stood calmly, waiting. The silence was broken by sudden laughter. It started with one delegate, then another until half the chamber was filled with mocking voices. The sound was cruel, sharp, echoing from the walls like blades. "Look at them," one alien sneered. "One small device, one small light, and they think we tremble." Another slammed his hand against the table, laughing so hard his fangs glistened. "This is the mighty humanity we feared? Children with toys." The human envoy did not respond. His eyes never left the speaker. He stood as still as stone while the storm of laughter filled the chamber. The two humans behind him shifted uncomfortably. But even they said nothing. They knew their role. This was not a place for weakness. The speaker leaned back on his throne of fire, his massive chest shaking with amusement. "Humans," he said, his voice like an earthquake. "You think too highly of yourselves. You come into the sacred council, you place your little box on our table. You dare to stand tall in front of empires older than your history." His mouth cracked into a grin of molten stone. "Do you believe you can frighten us with a red light?" The chamber erupted with more laughter. Alien voices overlapped, each trying to outdo the other in mockery. "They are ants pretending to be lions," one whispered with cruel delight. "Let them bark. Their world will soon belong to us." Another hissed, "They will give us their oceans, their forests, their skies, and still they will smile with gratitude." Yet, through all of this, the human envoy's face remained unchanged. He did not defend himself, he did not shout. He let the council spit out their arrogance. And when their voices began to fade, he finally spoke. His tone was calm, almost too calm. "We value peace," he said slowly. "But peace is not the same as surrender." The laughter quieted a little. A few alien leaders tilted their heads, as if uncertain, but others leaned forward with sharp teeth flashing. "Surrender is all you can give," one said. "Your ships are paper, your armies are insects. Your world is a jewel we will take." Another added, his voice dripping with greed, "Perhaps we will keep you as servants. Perhaps we will keep you as pets." The council roared again with cruel amusement. They mocked Earth's small size, its short history, its fragile armies. They compared humans to dust floating in the void. Every insult was meant to crush pride, to break spirit. But still the envoy stood without flinching. At last he lifted his hand. The small red light on the cube blinked again, brighter this time. "Do you truly believe?" the human envoy asked, his voice firm but steady. "That we came here without understanding the risk?" He looked around, his eyes cold as steel. "You mock us because you do not understand us. You laugh because you do not remember your own beginnings. But you will learn." The chamber shifted uneasily. The mocking voices quieted, though a few tried to laugh again. It was a thin, nervous laughter this time. The speaker slammed his fist on the table, shaking the hall. "You bring no ships, no armies, no weapons into this place," he roared. "You speak of warnings, but I see only weakness." The envoy tilted his head slightly, his lips forming the smallest of smiles. "No weapons?" he asked softly. "Perhaps you should look again." The alien council paused. Something in his words, something in his unshaken calm, spread like a shadow across the room. The mocking laughter finally broke apart, replaced by whispers of doubt. Leaders leaned toward one another, some narrowing their eyes, others frowning with unease. For the first time, the humans were no longer seen as insects. They were an unknown, and the unknown was dangerous. One alien leaned forward, his many eyes flashing. "You dare threaten us in our own chamber?" he demanded. But his voice wavered, trembling just slightly. The envoy did not answer him. Instead, he placed both hands calmly behind his back. His eyes returned to the speaker. "We came here to speak of peace," he said. "But if peace is mocked, then we will speak in a language you cannot laugh at." The words hung in the air like thunder. No one laughed this time. The alien council sat frozen, their arrogance shaken. The red light on the cube pulsed once more, steady, powerful. Then the envoy said, in a voice that cut through every whisper, "Outside this chamber, the first lesson waits." Every alien I turned again to the windows. The stars beyond were shifting. The shadows in the void grew sharper, closer, and the mocking voices of moments ago died in the silence of fear. The alien council chamber was heavy with silence. Moments ago, the air was filled with laughter, cruel and mocking. But now, every voice had faded, replaced by unease. The humans stood calmly, their little black cube glowing with a steady red light. It was not a weapon, not a bomb, yet it felt like something more dangerous than either. The speaker of the council glared at the envoy, his fiery skin cracking with rage. "You test our patience, human," he thundered. "Explain yourself at once, or your species will pay the price." His words echoed across the hall, but they did not shake the human envoy. Instead, the man took one step forward, his voice quiet, yet sharp enough to cut the silence. "Humanity is not here to kneel," he said. "We came for peace, yes, but peace cannot exist without respect. You mock us, you laugh at us, you believe our history makes us weak. You are wrong." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. A lizard-like delegate hissed in anger, slamming its tail on the floor. "Your history?" it spat. "What is your history compared to ours? We conquered worlds before your kind even learned fire." The human envoy turned his gaze toward the creature, his expression calm. "Our history," he said slowly, "is survival. We are the children of a planet that tested us every day. Storms, plagues, fire, war. Each one tried to destroy us, but each one made us stronger. We did not simply live, we endured." The words struck the chamber like a hidden blade. Some aliens scoffed, others muttered among themselves, but a few sat in silence, watching the envoy with something new in their eyes, something close to respect. Still, the speaker roared again, refusing to yield. "Enough of this, your words are empty, your threats are dust. You hold no armies here. You hold no power in this chamber." The human envoy raised a hand toward the glowing cube. His voice grew firm. "This is not a threat," he said. "This is a message, a signal. If you doubt us, look outside again." The aliens turned toward the windows. At first, only darkness greeted them, but then the stars themselves seemed to move. One by one, massive shapes emerged from the void, their outlines sharp, their presence undeniable. Great human battleships, black and silent, sliding out of warp like shadows of giants. Gasps filled the council hall. Even the proudest delegates could not hide their shock. The ships dwarfed many of the alien fleets outside, their hulls lined with weapons glowing faintly in the void. No sound reached the chamber, yet the image alone was louder than any laughter. The envoy let the silence linger. Then he spoke again, his words calm but heavy. "These are only a fraction of our strength. We did not come here to fight, but do not mistake peace for weakness. When humanity warns, it is not a bluff." The chamber erupted with chaos. Some aliens shouted in anger, others in disbelief. "Impossible," one cried. "They are too young. They cannot build fleets of this size." Another hissed, "How could they hide this from us?" Fear began to spread, sharp and quick, like cracks in glass. The speaker slammed his fists, silencing the voices. His fiery eyes burned at the envoy. You dare bring war machines to this council? He thundered. You dare threaten the peace of the galaxy? The envoy shook his head slowly. No, he said, his tone sharp but controlled. We do not bring war. We bring a warning. Test us and you will understand. Respect us, and you will have an ally stronger than you imagine. A chilling quiet fell again. The alien leaders studied the envoy, studied the silent armada beyond the windows. They no longer saw fragile creatures from a small planet. They saw a force that had been underestimated. They saw a species that had been mocked for its youth, but had grown dangerous in its silence. One alien delegate, older and wiser than most, leaned forward. His voice trembled as he spoke. Why would you build such fleets? What drives your kind to prepare for such war? The envoy turned his gaze upon him. Because history taught us one thing, he said. Those who laugh at us, those who try to break us, always regret it. His words sank deep. The cube's red light blinked once more, pulsing like a heartbeat. The envoy placed his hands behind his back and stood tall. He did not need to speak further. The warning had been given. The lesson was clear. For the first time since the council had formed, the laughter of its leaders was gone. In its place was silence, sharp and heavy. And in that silence, the galaxy learned the first truth of humanity. Peace was offered, but strength always stood behind it. The alien council chamber shook with a low vibration. It was not from the voices of anger, nor from the pounding fists of the speaker. It was something deeper, heavier, like the sound of mountains shifting beneath the sea. The aliens turned again toward the vast windows, their eyes wide, their breaths sharp. The darkness outside was no longer empty. One by one, the shapes grew clearer. Human battleships, black steel cutting across the stars, slid out of the void. Their hulls stretched longer than cities, their shadows covering the station like the wings of beasts. Dozens appeared, then more, until the galaxy's brightest lights seemed swallowed by human metal. Their arrival was silent, yet that silence was louder than thunder. The council erupted in chaos. Delegates shouted in disbelief, their voices colliding in a storm of fear and anger. This cannot be real, a feathered alien screamed, its wings trembling. They are too young a race, a scaled one hissed. How could they forge ships like these? Others fell silent, unable to speak, their gazes fixed on the endless wall of battleships hanging in the dark. The speaker rose, fire burning from his skin, his molten eyes narrowing. You bring weapons of war to a council of peace, he thundered. This is not strength. This is provocation. But even his words, filled with rage, trembled against the sight outside. The human envoy stood firm, his hands folded behind his back. He did not look at the speaker. He looked at the window, at the fleet that now hung above the council like a warning carved in steel. When he finally spoke, his voice was calm, but heavy enough to still the noise of the chamber. You asked what power humanity holds, he said. You laughed, you mocked, you believed we were too small to matter. Now you see, this is our answer. The aliens stared in disbelief. Every ship outside was armed with cannons glowing faint blue. Every hull carried scars of battles past, proof that these machines were not built for show. They had fought, they had survived, they were ready to fight again. One alien leader, pale and trembling, leaned forward. Impossible, he whispered, his voice breaking. You have no colonies, no great empire, no ancient technology. How could you build such a fleet? The envoy turned his eyes toward him. We built them because we had to, he replied. On Earth, survival is never given. It is earned. Storms, disasters, endless wars. Each one forced us to grow. We did not wait for others to protect us. We became our own shield. His words struck the chamber like cold iron. Some aliens still scoffed, though their voices lacked the strength of mockery. They bluff, one growled, though even as he spoke his eyes betrayed doubt. They cannot risk war against us all, another whispered, though his hands shook against the table. The envoy did not raise his voice. "There is no bluff," he said. "These ships exist because history taught us one lesson. When others threaten us, we endure. When others strike us, we rise. And when we give warning, it is the last mercy we offer." The council fell into silence once more. Only the faint hum of the station filled the air. The alien leaders shifted in their seats, their arrogance melting into unease. They were used to being feared, used to commanding respect with their size and power. But now they faced something different, something they did not expect from a young race. They faced resolve. The speaker slammed his hands on the table, cracks of fire splitting the wood-like surface. "You think you can frighten us?" he roared, though his voice carried more anger than certainty. "You think to challenge the empires of the stars with shadows in the void?" But even as he spoke, his fiery eyes flickered toward the endless fleet outside. He too could not ignore the scale. The human envoy met his rage with quiet steel. "We did not come here to frighten you," he said. "We came to show you the truth. Humanity seeks peace, but we do not kneel to threats. You mocked us because you thought we were small, but now you see what small can become when pushed too far." A murmur ran through the chamber. Some aliens lowered their eyes, unwilling to meet the human gaze. Others clenched their jaws, caught between pride and fear. And a few, those who had lived long enough to recognize true danger, sat in silence, their thoughts racing with grim respect. The cube on the table blinked once more, its red light steady as a heartbeat. The envoy let his gaze move slowly across the chamber, meeting every eye he could. Then he said quietly, yet with words that struck like thunder, "This is not a threat, it is a choice. Decide how you wish to remember humanity, as an ally, or as the shadow that answered your laughter." The chamber grew colder. The battleships outside did not move, they did not fire, but their very presence was a storm waiting at the edge of silence. The aliens, once filled with pride and arrogance, now sat trapped in their own fear, and the galaxy itself seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the next word, the next decision, the next strike. The council chamber was silent. No laughter remained. No mockery echoed through the walls. Only the low hum of the station and the steady glow of the red cube filled the air. Outside, the human battleships floated like giants of steel, patient and still. The alien leaders stared, torn between fear and pride. They did not understand how such a young species had risen so far. They did not know the truth. The human envoy took a slow breath. His voice was calm, but heavy with memory. "You see our ships, you see our strength," he said. "But you do not understand why we built them. So let me tell you the story of Earth." The aliens shifted, some leaning forward, others frowning. The speaker glared but did not interrupt. The envoy's eyes grew distant, as if he spoke not only to the council, but to the ghosts of his own people. "Earth was never kind to us," he began. "Our world is beautiful, yes, but beauty does not mean mercy. Storms that tear down cities, oceans that rise and swallow land, quakes that split the earth, fire that burns from the sky. Nature gave us no peace, only tests." He paused, letting the words sink in. Aliens who lived on calm, controlled worlds frowned, unable to imagine such constant danger. But he continued, his voice steady, "And when it was not nature, it was ourselves. For thousands of years, humans fought one another. Tribes became kingdoms. Kingdoms became empires. Each rose and fell in blood. War was our teacher, hunger was our master. We knew pain long before we reached the stars." The chamber stirred, whispers rising. Some aliens sneered, foolish creatures destroying their own. But others felt a chill, for though they mocked, they knew the truth. Struggle forges steel, and endless struggle forges something unbreakable. The envoy's eyes grew harder. "Do you know what war taught us?" he asked, his voice cutting through the murmurs. "It taught us to endure. When cities fell, we rebuilt. When millions died, we grieved, and then we marched forward. No matter the wound, no matter the loss, humanity rose again. Every time the universe tried to crush us, we stood taller. Some aliens lowered their eyes, uneasy. They had lived in empires protected by ancient fleets, guided by stable worlds. They did not understand the strength of those who had nothing but survival. The envoy's tone grew colder. You laugh at us because we are young, but you forget that youth is forged in fire. You see our fleet and think it was made for conquest, but it was made for survival, because history told us one truth. Peace never lasts, and only the strong can protect it. The speaker slammed his burning fists on the table, his voice trembling with both rage and unease. You claim your wars make you strong? You claim your suffering makes you worthy? The envoy turned his gaze on him, sharp as a blade. I claim nothing, he said. I tell you what is. You see, every empire here was born from fire, but you have forgotten. You grew soft in your power. You mock us because we remind you of what you once were. The words struck deep. Some alien leaders growled in denial. Others looked away in shame, for they knew the envoy was right. Once, long ago, their people had struggled as humans struggled, but time and power had dulled their edge. The envoy's voice dropped lower, colder. When we reached the stars, we thought we might find peace at last. We dreamed of allies, of friendship, of something greater than war. But even here we find the same arrogance, the same greed. And so we prepared. We built ships not because we wanted war, but because we remembered our history. Because history told us there would always be someone who laughs at us, someone who tries to take from us. He gestured toward the window, where the massive battleships floated like shadows across the stars. Those ships are not monuments of conquest. They are monuments of memory. Every beam of steel carries the weight of our past. Every weapon speaks the language we were forced to learn. We do not seek to use them, but we will never again be unprepared. The chamber was quiet. No one laughed now, no one dared. Even the speaker's fire dimmed, though his rage still burned. The aliens saw now that the human fleet was not built from arrogance, but from scars. It was not pride that gave humans strength, but survival. And survival is a force older and stronger than any empire. The envoy's final words hung heavy. Understand this, he said, his voice sharp as iron. We value peace, but peace is not given, it is protected. If you mock us, if you push us, then you awaken the memory of Earth. And when that memory rises, no power in the stars can stand against it. The cube on the table blinked red again, steady and strong. The council chamber sat frozen in silence. And in that silence, every alien knew the truth. They had not been laughing at weakness. They had been laughing at fire, and fire always burns. The council chamber felt heavier than before. The air seemed thick, as if the very walls of the station pressed down upon those inside. The red cube blinked steadily on the table, its glow like the slow beating of a heart. And outside, the human battleships waited in silence, unmoving, yet more terrifying than any roar. No one laughed now. The alien leaders sat tense in their seats, their eyes flicking between the envoy and the endless fleet. The speaker's molten gaze burned, but even his fire no longer carried the same certainty. He clenched his fists, his voice deep and furious. You speak of history, you speak of survival, but you come here with weapons. You claim peace, yet you arrive like conquerors. Why should we not destroy you where you stand? The human envoy did not flinch. His voice was calm, firm, each word measured like steel. You could try, he said, but you would fail. Not because we are stronger than all of you combined, but because once humanity decides to endure, there is no power in the stars that can erase us. The words rippled through the chamber. Some aliens whispered nervously, others clenched their jaws in anger, but none could deny the truth. Those ships outside were no illusion. They were real, and their presence alone was a challenge to every empire in the room. The envoy's eyes swept across the council. He studied each leader, pausing on them one by one, until the silence grew unbearable. Then, with a voice sharp and steady, he spoke again. This is the moment you must choose, he said. Humanity extends its hand in peace, in respect, in trade. Stand with us, and you will have allies who do not break, who do not surrender. But if you choose arrogance, if you choose to mock, if you choose to threaten, then you will face us in a language no one here will laugh at. The words struck like thunder. The aliens shifted in their seats, their pride warring against their fear. Some lowered their eyes, unable to meet the envoy's gaze. Others gritted their teeth, their pride bleeding through their trembling hands. A tall insectoid delegate clicked its mandibles, its voice filled with unease. You dare to give ultimatums to the Council of Empires? You, a child of the stars? The envoy turned to face it. No, he said, his voice sharp. I dare to give you truth, because history has already given us no other choice. The speaker's fire flared, smoke spilling from his mouth. You threaten us with war, he growled. You speak of peace, yet your words carry blades. The envoy stepped forward, his eyes locked with the speaker's burning gaze. We threaten nothing, he said. We only promise, peace if respected, war if forced. That is not a threat. It is an ultimatum. The chamber erupted into argument. Some aliens shouted for war, their voices fueled by pride and fear. Others demanded caution, their eyes darting to the endless fleet outside. The sound of clashing voices shook the chamber, but the envoy stood silent. He waited, letting them argue, letting them reveal their fear. Finally, an elder alien, thin and frail, but wise with centuries of memory, rose from his seat. His voice was soft, but it carried more weight than the shouts. You all laugh at them, but tell me, how many of you could survive what they have survived? How many of you could endure endless war, endless pain, and rise still standing? We forget because our empires shield us, but they remember, and it has made them stronger than we wish to admit. The chamber grew quieter. Even the speaker's fire dimmed as the elder's words cut through the noise. The envoy bowed his head slightly toward the elder. You understand, he said softly. Peace is always our first choice. But if you mock peace, if you break it, then we will not hesitate. He looked back to the speaker, his voice firm once more. Do not mistake our calm for weakness. Do not mistake our patience for fear. We are offering you peace. But peace does not mean surrender. It never will. The speaker stared back at him, his burning eyes narrowing. For the first time, his anger faltered, replaced by something colder, something closer to caution. The chamber felt it too, the slow shift of power. The humans were no longer seen as children of the stars. They stood as equals and perhaps something more. The envoy let the silence stretch. Then he spoke the final words of his ultimatum. Choose wisely, because if you choose wrong, the history of Earth will not repeat itself. It will rewrite the stars. And when it does, there will be no laughter left in this chamber. The cube pulsed red again, steady, unshaken. Outside, the human fleet waited. The ships did not move, did not fire, but their silent presence was a blade pressed against the throat of the galaxy. And inside the council, the alien leaders sat frozen, caught between pride and survival, between arrogance and fear. They had expected weakness, they had expected diplomacy. Instead, they were given a choice sharper than any sword, a choice that could decide the fate of empires. The council chamber was locked in silence. The red cube blinked softly on the table, steady as a heartbeat. Outside, the human fleet floated like shadows of iron across the stars. Dozens of alien leaders sat frozen, their eyes moving between the envoy and the endless warships. Pride held their tongues, but fear pulled at their hearts. The speaker of the council leaned back slowly, his molten eyes fixed on the human envoy. For the first time since the meeting began, his fire dimmed. Smoke curled from his mouth, not in anger, but in thought. The chamber waited, every leader watching, waiting for his judgment. At last, the speaker's voice broke the silence, deep and heavy. You came here speaking of peace, he rumbled. You came with weapons at our doorstep. You demand respect. Tell me, human, if we refuse, if we deny you, what will you do? The envoy met his burning gaze without fear. His voice was calm, steady, and unshaken. Then history will decide for you, he said, because humanity does not ask twice. If you break peace, if you mock it, then our answer will not be words. It will be written in fire across the stars. The chamber stirred with whispers. Some aliens bristled. Others looked away, for they could see the truth in his eyes. This was not arrogance, not bluff. This was survival speaking, a voice carved from centuries of pain and endurance. An insectoid delegate clicked nervously, its mandibles scraping the table. If we agree, it said, if we respect your peace, what do you offer us? Why should we trust that you will not become conquerors yourselves? The envoy's gaze softened, though his tone remained firm. Because we know the cost of war too well, because we have seen the ashes of our own mistakes, and because humanity does not seek thrones. We seek only to stand as equals. The elder alien, frail yet wise, rose again, his voice calm. I believe them, he said. Look into their history, and you will see what they are. They do not rise for conquest, they rise because they must. And if they stand as our allies, then the galaxy may yet find a strength it has long forgotten. The chamber grew quiet once more. One by one, alien leaders lowered their eyes. Their pride fought them, but their survival whispered louder. The sight of the fleet outside was not something they could erase. It was a shadow that would haunt them if they chose arrogance. Finally, the speaker rose to his full towering height. His molten chest glowed, smoke curling from his lips. He looked around at the council, his voice echoing with reluctant gravity. Then we vote, he declared. Peace or war, respect or ruin. One by one, the votes were cast. Some shouted for defiance, their pride burning too strong. But most, shaken by the weight of steel outside, whispered for peace. The decision became clear. The council would not mock humanity again. The speaker turned back to the envoy. His eyes narrowed, his voice still proud, but no longer mocking. The council has chosen. Peace will stand. But understand this, human. If you betray it, the galaxy will not forgive you. The envoy bowed his head slightly. Nor would we forgive ourselves, he said. Peace is the first choice of humanity, and it will always remain so. But now you know the second. The chamber fell into stillness. The red cube blinked one final time before fading dark. Outside, the human fleet began to shift. Slowly, silently, the ships turned, pulling back into the blackness of space. One by one, they disappeared into the void, leaving only starlight behind. The alien leaders exhaled in relief, though none dared speak their thoughts aloud. For even as the ships vanished, the memory of them remained. It was a warning carved into the stars, a warning that would echo across generations. The elder alien lowered himself back into his seat, whispering softly. They expected weakness, they expected fear, but what they found was fire, and fire does not bow. The speaker's molten eyes dimmed as he spoke to the chamber. Let it be written in the records of the council. The day humanity came before us, the day they offered peace, but carried warning, the day laughter died. The envoy turned and began to walk toward the great doors. His steps calm, steady, as if the weight of 100 empires on his back meant nothing. The other two humans followed silently, carrying no weapons, only the quiet confidence of survival. Before leaving, the envoy stopped once, looking back over his shoulder. His voice was calm, but it carried to every corner of the hall. Remember this day, he said, not because humanity demanded fear, but because humanity offered peace, and because you learned what happens when peace is mocked. Then the doors closed behind him. The sound echoed through the chamber like the final strike of a hammer. The aliens remained seated, none daring to speak, for in their minds, They saw again the shadow of battleships waiting in silence, and they knew that the warning of Earth would never be forgotten. From that day forward, across the stars, one truth spread. The young race from a small blue planet was not weak. They were survivors, they were builders, they were warriors when pushed too far, and their legacy was written not in conquest, but in the choice they forced upon the galaxy. They expected diplomacy, they laughed, until a battleship, and that became humanity's warning, forever,